Hey guys, today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about play that you might have in the steering arms of an Argo Bigfoot 6x6. Not sure what this model is. I think it's a 2000. Haven't checked the VIN. But I do think there's a couple different cylinder setups on this. This is the Grimca. And in the description I'll post something about the VIN number. And you can trace it back from there, and I'll try to find a year. But this may work with other Argos. So, to hop into it, one side had some slack in the steering arm, if that's what you want to call it. The right side. So, the first thing you'd want to check before hopping into anything too serious is this little rod right here. This little rod, you can put a wrench on either side and screw it out, screw it in, and adjust this little linkage here, taking up the slack. If you have a little bit of slack, a couple millimeters worth, and something that's just over time has gotten a little bit worse over time, this is probably your culprit. This is what you want to go into. Now, if you're like me, I'm digging into an Argo that has sat in the woods and was completely filled with water, is locked up. I have no idea what's worked, what's frozen up, what needs reordering, what needs replaced. And so, I didn't think it was this adjustment. I thought it was probably something more serious since it's been sitting. Now, I have this adjustment bent almost straight now, but it was fairly bent. I think someone was trying to force the cylinder. At one point, I'm sure it was, someone made an effort to try and restore it, and then just let it go back into the woods. So, I was looking at the cylinders and I wanted to see if they worked. So I opened up the bleeder on both sides. Left side worked, right side did not. No fluid at all. It was hard to press. It would only go that little bit that had slack, but as soon as it came in contact with the cylinder and the piston, it didn't move. Well, I started looking at the cylinder and piston, and usually that piston's going to be sticking out of that cylinder about like that. That O-ring comes almost to the end. Well, when I looked at it, the piston was back there, and it wasn't returning. And the only thing that returns it is this spring here. So I put some PB Blaster in the reservoir, and then also on the other side were the brake hose, the banjo bolt or screws, bolts into, I guess. I filled this bore up with PB Blaster and let it soak, thinking maybe it was just stuck. But the brake fluid looked fine. It didn't look like it was water got in there or any rust. It looked fine. It's a pretty sealed system. And the PB Blaster didn't really help. I banged it on a wood table and gave some light tammer haps around the bore, and I think it moved a little bit, but it still had a good ways to come out. So, in here, in this reservoir, you can see there's those two holes in the bottom. The left one is a real small orifice, and this one to my right is a large hole that you can actually get to the piston with. And you can see my finger move in through there, so it's a fairly big hole. And the other one you can't see my finger when it passes through. So you'll want to use the right one, and when you're in there, you'll know. But you can get a little pick in there and pry this piston out, because to buy this whole master cylinder, it's about even the Grimco one they don't make anymore. I think you have to buy the Willwood or Wildwood, whatever you want to say, one, and it's like $183. Well, I wanted to take it apart and get to the seals or see if I could sand this out. Well, after I got it out, it stuck out a little bit, and I put vice grips on it, which I'll sand down before we put it back in. But I noticed, and I had my other cylinder out as well, that the seals on this were really enlarged. And you can see that there's notches missing out of this. And I tried to put it into the bore a couple times. Well, this seal was so enlarged that it would catch on that big hole, and when you pulled it out, it would rip a chunk out of it. Now, they're the right shape. They're not like some O-rings that somebody found. They matched the other cylinder because I took the other one apart. But it was just like they were enlarged. So maybe some water got in there, or maybe the PB Blaster I put in there enlarged it and also cleaned out some rust. I've left them alone for a little bit, and they seem to have gotten smaller, but still, it's quite a lot of force. I'm putting it back in here, and the spring won't return it. You have to, I don't push it in too far. I keep it enough where I can pull it out with pliers, and I've had to every time. Now, the seal kit you can get from Argo, and I think it's $17 or $18, 17 and some change. So if you want to save a little bit of money on buying a master cylinder, go ahead, try to pry this out, try to save it, get these seals off because these swelled up, or this boot here did not match the boot on the other side that was connected to the steering pin. And so someone might have been in here before me and put in some seals for a different modeled Grimka, and they could have been just a hair bigger. I'm not quite sure. So either your seals have swelled, or maybe someone in there before you, because some of those parts numbers are confusing, and Argo, especially in those days, early 2000s, late 90s, tried on so many different models, different brakes, and different ways of doing things. You know, it's hard to find the right part number, so especially if you're dealing with one that somebody just couldn't get quite going, this may be something to look at. Well, I hope that you may have learned something from this video. If you have any questions, comment, and I'll try to get back to you, and have a good one.